My name is Jonathan Herst. I am 31 years old and I am a graduate student in the Master's of Social Work program at University of Kentucky. Just started, I have about a year left in my master's program. Got my undergrad in 2001, so it's been quite a while since I've been in school. Went to high school outside of Washington, D.C., joined the military in 2001, right about a month before September 11th, and been 5 years in the military and got out with a medical discharge. I was born in Wisconsin. I've lived in about 7 different states.
And are you military?
No, not at all. No, my grandfather was in the Marines, and my father never served.
Are you a first generation? So does that make your father never served? So you're the first generation from your immediate family.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that how is that? How does your immediate mom and dad was it something they were hesitant about?
Well, they were very scared. They went to work one day. I was sitting at home, and when they came home, asked me how my day went. I told them I enlisted in the Army.
Wow.
So at first my dad said, "You're fine. Nothing in the world's going on right now. There's no conflict, so there's nothing to worry about." And then, a month later, September 11th, and everything changed.
What did you think about that?
I was excited. I mean, I knew that way I was actually going to do something in the military, not just join the military. I was going to have an opportunity to serve. Growing up, I was just an average, me and my brother, family of 2 children. Parents were married, still married today, 39 years. Just a white-collar family. Didn't really work until I was out of high school. My whole focus was just sports. Captain of the baseball team, captain of the football team. Got a baseball and football scholarship to college, played all through college. So my whole life was sports. And it was just an opportunity where, an average lifestyle, everything kind of handed to me, if you could say that. Never really had to scratch and claw for whether it be food or for the new clothes or anything like that. So I was blessed. And I think that kind of fed into, all the way till I was 21 years old, never really having to do much. Everything, even the tuition and things were taken care of. So I think that fed into what I said earlier about how I hadn't had to do anything, hadn't had to challenge myself. So that's why I chose to enlist.
So when you enlisted, and you said a month later the 9/11 attacks happened, what was going through your head as the plane hit the building?
Well, I was actually on an airplane when it hit. I was flying from Atlanta to Cleveland, visit my college buddies one more time before I joined, or before I flew off to Fort Benning. And when we hit the ground, we got shuttled off the plane, and we were scared to death. But I think with the people behind me, the fears were different. They were worried about how's their family, how's this. And after I found out that my family was fine and good to go, I was thinking more about, now what is this going to mean for me? Should I call the recruiter and find out what's going to happen, or should I just go with it? And so it changed my whole mindset. Instead of just going in, well, I'm going to join the military and do my 3, 4, 5 years, however long I need to, and get out, it changed to, I really got to prepare myself mentally, find out what the heck is going to happen.
Did you briefly think about backing out?
No. I knew my parents would lose all respect for me if I did that.
So, did you notice that, when you went to boot camp, did you excel?
I was average. I mean, physically I was probably on a little bit above average. But when military, I never shot a weapon until I went to basic training. So when it came to the firing range and things like that, breaking down your weapon, I had no clue.
What was your most memorable moment in boot camp?
Probably the pugil stick training, the physical hand-to-hand combat training, where I seemed to excel pretty well. I decided I wanted to challenge the biggest guy in the platoon. Everybody just, was scared of him pretty much. And it took him out with one punch. So it was great. It changed the whole camaraderie level of, with me, people were suddenly drawn to me, and it was great.
Did you draw back on your football experiences with a lot of that?
I think so. I think mainly just I was pissed off that everybody was looking up at this guy and he had never done anything. So I wanted to prove to him and everybody else that he wasn't all that.
So after boot camp, you went to,
I went right to AIT, or what the Army does is OSUT, one station unit training, and it focuses on your entire time at the same Fort Benning, Georgia, and then right from there you go to airborne school. So it's all right there at Fort Benning, so you don't have to do much or travel anywhere.
so after the basic was over, what'd you go do?
Went right to airborne school.
Airborne school?
Yep.
So tell me about airborne school.
It was 2 weeks of just running, jumping, learning how to land when you jump out of a plane, learning how to not so much pack your chutes, but make sure that you're prepared to jump. And then you do 5 jumps. You do 2 night jumps and 3 daytime jumps.
What was it like the first time they opened up?
That was fearful. I stood up, I was all hooked up, and I was trying to tell myself, this is going to be great, you're going to really enjoy this. But I'm scared to death of heights. So that kind of, that was going through my mind too. And as I walked towards the door, you can feel the wind whipping. It's going to suck you out of this plane. And get to the door, and at that point you have to go. I mean, there's guys behind you pushing you. But I remember closing my eyes and just hoping for the best and just praying. But it went well. I landed. And
What was it like being in the air?
it was peaceful, perfectly quiet. You look around and all you can see is trees and just beautiful grass. I mean, it is very peaceful.
And by your 5th jump, were you better?
By the 5th jump, I was running for the door and trying to dive out and keep my eyes open. I wanted to take it all in. If I had a camera, I would have carried it with me. It was perfect. But I land like a sack of potatoes every time. I'm not the smallest guy in the world, so it was never a good landing.
So what was your occupation in the Army?
I'm an airborne infantryman.
And describe to me what, basic job description of airborne.
Well, on paper, what you're supposed to do as an airborne infantryman is jump out of a plane into a drop zone, landing zone, and upon hitting the ground, be prepared to fight on the spot. You're supposed to jump into the middle of the battle and kind of like a surprise attack. Fortunately, none of my jumps we ever had to do that. We never took fire right away. But really, you prepare yourself to, as soon as you hit the ground, everything that you can carry on your back is what you have to live on. For whether it be 18 hours, whether it be 18 days, you have to be prepared to survive until they tell you not to survive anymore.
And how are those, among other troops in the Army, how are airborne looked upon?
Well,
Inter-Army.
I would think we're looked up to. There's quotes everywhere about the airborne, but my favorite is, being airborne is simply being able to know that you're better than everyone. It's just a way of life. You're trained, you're not brainwashed, 'cause that's a horrible word, but you are told from day one that you are better than everyone. And if they wanted to be as good as you, they would join airborne. It's just one of those things. Every unit has their special, we're the best, but I'll always, as soon as you put that maroon beret on, it's perfect. It's the best feeling in the world.
When you got done with airborne school, that was your token. What was that like?
It was amazing. My dad was the one that got to pin my wings on me, which made it that much more special, being, that I look up to him as my hero. So him being able to do that was really, it capped off not only basic, but all the way through airborne school, and being able to say, I did it, I'm great. So. We had been watching the news, so we knew that there was, 3rd Infantry Division had already crossed in from Kuwait to start the war. And we knew it was a matter of time. Turkey had closed their airways to us, to the American troops, so we weren't allowed to land in Turkey like we were originally supposed to, and then drive into northern Iraq. So we got just a message from our commander that in 24 hours we need you to meet. We're going to have a brigade formation in this tent city, what they call it. It's just a big open field that they put up these little quick tents. And when we showed up, we thought, okay, we're going to get the orders to go to Iraq here pretty soon. But when we showed up, they told us that I hope you guys have said goodbye to your families, because you're locked down. No one's leaving this tent. So there was no way for us to communicate with our families or anybody else to tell them that we're leaving. They just said, you're locked down, we're going to be jumping into Iraq within 48 hours. And watching the news, we knew that no one else had jumped in. I mean, this was our, we're going to make history doing this. So we sat there for quite a while, just waiting for the time to go.
What was the mood like in that tent?
Nervous. I mean, you had the guys that ran around and, oh, we're going to kill everybody and we're going to be macho, but you could tell that people were scared. I mean, obviously this was everybody's first deployment. There hadn't been a war in years, so we were all young, fresh kids that didn't know what was going to happen.
What were you expecting?
From what I saw on the news, watching the first, I guess, 4 days of combat, I was expecting to hit the ground and just start shooting away. Just start, anything that moved, just kill it. And that made me nervous too. Like I said, never shot a weapon before, much less had to kill somebody. So I didn't know what to expect.
So then take me through the next 48 hours.
Well, there's a lot of sitting around and just, you write your death letters, what we consider to be almost like a living will to your parents or whoever. And in case you die, you tell the guy next to you, one of your best friends, that if I die, I want you to deliver this letter to my mom or my dad or whoever, you're significant. And that gets emotional because you don't know if you've done enough or said enough. But at the same time, you're still trying to focus on the upcoming mission. You do a lot of in-squad things, meaning the 10 guys in your squad will just sit together and reflect on what you need to do, the training, going over your language. We're trying to learn Arabic, so when we go over there, we have a little bit better idea what to do. So we had practice on each other and things like that. Double check each other's equipment to make sure we have everything we need. Just little things, just anything to keep your mind off of actually going in.
So basically everything that you all needed to go to Iraq was in that tent with you all?
Yep, you had about a 110-pound rucksack, and that's what you had in a weapon.
What all would be in that sack?
Well, you would think it would be things to live on, like warm clothes and whatever, compasses and rain gear, but really it was ammo and food. We carried 3 MREs and, the rations or the food that the military eats, as well as just any kind of ammo you could find. You just stuffed as much ammo as you could in there. I was also on a gun team, machine gun team. I was the assistant gunner, meaning I had to carry the tripod. It's still the same steel tripod that they carried in World War II. So that was strapped on top of my rucksack also. And so it added a lot of weight, and it made it a difficult packing situation.
So what happened from there? Did you all, when you all, they gave you the orders to get up, let's go, take me from there?
We loaded buses right there in northern Italy, and we had to drive over to Ramstein Air Base in Germany, which was probably about 2 hours, and that's where we always flew out of. That trip, everybody was joking on the bus ride up there. I mean, that was our chance to really cut loose and enjoy ourselves a little bit. Got up to Ramstein, and they put us in this giant open field just by what they call chalks or sticks. Everybody on the plane lines up in order of how they're going to get on the plane so they can get a head count and things like that. You just double check your ammo again. The brigade commander comes up and gets us all together and gives us, this a rah-rah speech of what we're about to do and what we're about to encounter, and pretty much thanking us on the part of American people for doing what we're doing. But by that time, you're so nervous and so pumped up, and your adrenaline's rushing that you don't really hear anything. You're so focused on just get me on the plane and let's get this thing going. We know we're going to be there forever, so let's just do it. And so we sat back down and waited.
You got on the plane and
got on the plane, and it was about a 4-hour trip. It was nerve-wracking.
More than the tent?
Yeah. I don't think anybody talked. I remember looking up and making eye contact with some of the guys sitting across from me. It was a C-17 aircraft, and so you're squashed in together. And I remember looking at the guys across from me making eye contact, and all we did was kind of nod at each other. No smile, no emotion, just kind of nodded at each other, as if to say, you know, we're going to get through this together, or, you know, I'm ready for this, you know, let's make sure you are, stuff like that. Just, it was an interesting time.
Did anybody show their true colors?
No.
Nobody's.
I can honestly say I didn't see anybody get upset, emotional, throw up, anything. It was, and I mean, that just made it easier for me to know that as I looked around, the guy on my right and left were, you know, tough as nails, or at least acting like it. I knew I could count on them to get me through.
So what was the next? What was the next step? Was it?
Well, next step, they, you know, the light sequence on the plane. You know, red light, green light.
What do those mean?
The red light means that you're not over the jump zone or drop zone. You're not free to jump. The doors are closed still. It's just travel mode. Next thing you know, the jump master is giving you the directions: stand up, hook up, check your equipment. Just the basic airborne ritual before you jump. And that's when the nerves really started hitting. I mean, you had to stand up on wobbly legs with 110 pounds stuck between your groin, and you're just waiting, hoping for that door to open so that you can get off that uncomfortable plane. They told us before we jumped that we were jumping into a valley, completely surrounded by mountains. So the plane was going to have to head straight down like a nosedive, and as soon as it leveled off, the green light was going to come on. We had to jump. If you didn't make it off the plane in the prescribed time, you had to sprint for the back of the plane, because it had to go to pretty much take off back straight up to get away from the mountains. So if you weren't quick enough getting off the plane, you missed your combat jump. You missed the rest of your unit is on the ground and you're flying back to Italy. So there was some pressure there. So there was 996 of us paratroopers from the 173rd Airborne total making this jump. 10 birds, 10 aircraft, and there was 996 of us that were supposed to jump. And I think 950 some actually made it out the door.
What happened? 40.
They didn't make it off. The light went from green to red, and they had to stay on the bird.
Did you?
Now that's just rumor, though. See, I never took a head count. So, but I've heard that there were quite a few that didn't make the jump. They couldn't get off the plane.
So was it dark?
Oh, it was pitch black. It was a moonless night. The only thing you could see when you jumped out of the plane was the tops of the mountains all the way around you exploding, because the Air Force had the F-16s just bombing the top of the mountains to make sure that there was no enemy coming after us. Pitch black, except for those explosions.
What were you thinking?
I thought I better find out where my weapon is as soon as possible, because it's going to be hot down there. So as soon as my chute opened, it's a huge impact when the chute opens. It catches, and all your weight just kind of snaps like a giant rubber band. Well, upon the chute opening, my pistol belt, the belt that's holding all my ammunition, my compass, my night vision, everything snaps off, completely breaks. And I could hear it hit the ground. But I was still quite a ways up, so there was no way for me to find it. So there's my ammo, my map, my compass, everything else. Then I hit the ground pretty quickly after that, and I was oscillating in the air, you know, swinging back and forth so much that I kind of landed on the side of my shoulder instead of a normal parachute landing fall on your feet and then your hips and things like that. So my Kevlar chin strap snapped in two and went flying probably 20, 30 feet away. So I'm laying in this muddy field in the middle of Iraq somewhere, and I did have a weapon. I had a 20-round magazine left. That's it. 20 bullets and a weapon, and no night vision. So I'm sitting there just looking for my K-pot or my Kevlar helmet. I had to cut my chute off of me because it was just tangled up. So it was, and I was nervous as anything. You know, you didn't know what to expect. So it was good times.
How far was everybody spread out?
Oh, crazy amounts. I mean, the jump went well, but I think we just got so spread out because there were so many planes in such a small area. So you had guys showing up to the rendezvous or the meeting point, the next morning, hours later. So it was. Luckily, I landed right by the hammerhead or the T intersection of a runway, and I remember from our training that that's where we were supposed to land. So I got pretty lucky there, and I just had to cross across the runway, and I was I think the second or third guy out of my whole company to meet at the prescribed area.
What did you do about your rounds?
I actually gathered them, I guess is the PC term, from some of the medics and other people that weren't going to be, combat arms positions.
So when you guys rallied, where were you off to?
Well, that was middle of the night still, so we spent the night there, and we just took turns. We had 50% around the perimeter, meaning you always go in buddy teams. So as one guy sleeps, one guy is up watching the perimeter. I remember waking up maybe an hour later, if you want to call it sleep, but laying there, and it started to rain. And I just sat there, laid there, and watched the water just gather and pile up. So you're just laying in mud and water, just kind of still wanting to know what is going on, what's our next move. So the whole time you're just at it, you're not feeling easy, you're just kind of nervous.
So then what was the rest of the deployment like?
Well, all our vehicles, I mean, being airborne, we don't really have vehicles. We were supposed to walk everywhere. Thank God, because all our vehicles were stuck in the mud anyways, we couldn't get to them. We just decided that we had to set up some kind of traffic control points in the area, so we did that. Pretty much walked maybe 5 or 6 miles and then set up a traffic control point, stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and then just kept on moving around. I'm not sure what the military or the Army's plan was. I think it was for us to jump into the north and head south and try to work our way, force the insurgents towards Baghdad so the 3rd Infantry Division coming from the south could intercept them. So we just started heading south. We made our way down to Kirkuk Airfield, not too far away to the south, and made base there.
Did you all, tell me about your first mission where you fired the weapon?
Well, it didn't happen too long after that. I remember I was on a gun team, like I said, and we were in the back of a Humvee. So I was the assistant gunner. The gunner was standing up in the back of a Humvee with his his Mark 240 machine gun. We came to a T intersection, 2 roads, and as soon as we inched up to the roadway, the first vehicle took a rocket-propelled grenade right across the front hood. So we dismounted all 4 vehicles and we ran towards the enemy, or where the shot came from. We were just going to try to clear the street. Well, some of the other vehicles had peeled off, and everybody had jumped out of the vehicles to go fight. I mean, they wanted to get into the fight. Well, as I jumped off the back of the vehicle to take cover behind a wall, the gunner realized that the driver of our vehicle had left. He had taken off to get into the firefight. So my gunner told me that I had to, pull him into a position where he could fire. So I jumped in the driver's seat, and I remember when I threw my weapon into the passenger seat so I could drive, it got wrapped around the gear shift. So I'm trying to drive him in a position where the gunner can actually get a clear shot, but I couldn't get the gear shift to move because it was tied up. It took me no more than 2 seconds just to get the sling around off of the gear shift, and as soon as I put it into drive and started to move forward, I might have moved 2 inches, and another rocket-propelled grenade came literally 2 feet. It skipped off the hood of the vehicle that I was driving, so 2 feet in front of me. Didn't explode, and exploded against the wall behind us. And right then and there, I knew, this is serious. They're out there trying to kill me. So it was an interesting situation, but that was an eye-opener, to say the least.
How was your behavior?
Well, it kind of pissed me off. And from then on, every time I went out on a mission, I knew they were out there to kill me, so I was going to get them first.
Did you become more hardened?
Oh, without a doubt. The fear became adrenaline and motivation more than anything else.
How did your behavior change? Were you more aggressive towards you?
I would say protective of my guys. I didn't go out looking to kill anybody. I didn't go out looking to hurt anybody. But I definitely would protect my guys at any cost. And it was heightened that day.
So, what was your most memorable mission or situation on your first deployment?
Well, besides the jump, which is ridiculous, I'll never forget that. There was just too many, that they all almost run together. It just seemed like 12 months of constant missions. I think the one mission I'll never forget was two of my buddies, my platoon members, died. One was shot in the throat and one was shot in the leg, and both of them passed away that day. There was just an ambush that you couldn't do anything about. You had to fight back and drive through it and fight through it, and they didn't make it. So to get the call to go back out and check the scene and make sure that no more insurgents are there, was hard. I think that's one time that I was actually looking for a fight. I was praying that someone would shoot at us or praying that somebody would do something to us so that we could get a little revenge. But no, it never happened. We pulled out of Fallujah and went to Camp Delta, where a Marine Corps unit had just got annihilated days before. So we took over that base, and it was our job to set up more traffic control points. We took heavy fire every day there. I mean, completely every day was just firefight after firefight. A lot of close calls. I mean, I can remember 3 close calls in 2 days just on me. I'm talking within inches. As I had my weapon up to my cheek, a round had hit the dust cover on my weapon, which I guess was about 1.5 inches away from my eye. So I mean, a lot of close calls, but that's part of it. You just kind of laugh about it. I remember after I got hit by that, I kind of fell down this little hill, and me and the guy next to me just started laughing like we had just seen the funniest movie in the world. We thought it was hilarious. But it got to the point where, what can you do? You got to laugh about it. You're still alive. That's great. You just make a joke of it.
At what point was it not funny?
Well, the only time it wasn't funny is when you saw your guys get hit. I had a lot of friends, whether it's sniper fire, IED explosions. That's the only time that it took you down a notch. It made you realize that this isn't a joke. And we weren't laughing because it was funny. To us, we were so sick of it. Your body and your mind can only take so much, so you almost get delirious. You start laughing.
Coping.
That's all you can do. If you cry, I mean, you just won't be able to stop. You might as well just laugh it off.
Well, take me through your incident with the IED.
Okay.
The date and exactly what happened, what you can remember.
Okay. August 3rd, 2005, we were coming to the end of I think it was about a 12 to 16 hour mission, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, driving down the street on our way back to our base. So the mission was over. We were on our way back. Too easy. And we got a call that there was a IED found on the road that we were on, so we were supposed to surround it and send out a squad of men to set up a sniper position or an overwatch position to see if we could find the trigger man, meaning the guy with the cell phone that's going to dial that number and make it explode. We surrounded it, we called it up, and the commander had warned us that there have been secondary IEDs or improvised exploding devices placed around the area because they knew our tactics. They had been watching us for years now. They knew we would surround it and send a squad out to overwatch. So we surrounded it. My squad just happened to be the third vehicle, and I never wanted anybody to do anything. I always wanted to be the point man. If some mission came up, I would volunteer. I always thought that if someone was going to die, if someone was going to get injured, it was going to be me. I didn't want it on my shoulders that anybody else would go home hurt. So I volunteered to be the point man and dismount my squad for the overwatch position. Well, as I was getting off the vehicle, I looked at the Bravo team leader, who, best friends, we still talk today, and I just said, this doesn't feel right, something bad is going to happen. I had never said that on any mission in 2 years. So for him to hear me say that, he kind of perked up, and so he, made sure that everybody got plenty of distance so that if one person got injured, it wouldn't take out everybody. And sure enough, about, I would say 50 feet from our vehicle, I was walking down the middle of a 3-lane highway, and explosion about 10 feet to my right exploded directly to the side of me. It was 2 155 millimeter mortar rounds taped together with a cell phone detonator, meaning someone had called the number they were watching me walk, and they blew it up. It lifted me off the ground and threw me across the rest of the highway, or skidded me across the side of the highway, and just a lot of injuries. I lost my left leg below the knee pretty much instantly. The medic said it was still attached, but there was no saving it. Half of my colon was, or part of my colon was removed. My bladder was perforated. My right leg femoral was slashed. A lot of nerve damage. I was just pretty much laying in the middle of the street like a turtle, just didn't feel anything. It didn't hurt. I remember screaming out to the guys, get back to the vehicle, take cover, whatever. And then I tried to stand up and run back to the vehicle. And as soon as I tried to stand up, my friend, the Bravo team leader, just tackled me like a football player to make sure I can stay on the ground. And tried to put a tourniquet on me. It snapped and broke in half, so he had to put another tourniquet on. Finally stopped the bleeding enough to get me back to the operating room, and within 20 minutes I was on the operating table. I had 4 surgeons working on me at once. Just everything was ripped open. Everything it was bad. Last thing I remember, I was laying perfectly 100% conscious, and the doctor was talking to me about, well, what hurts, and I just said, well, the medic in the vehicle on the way here said my leg was broken. I had a compound fracture, but it's not going to be amputated. I'm good to go. And the doctor just said, well, okay. And I said, so just as long as you save my leg, I'm happy. I don't want to be an amputee. Well, at that time, a female E5 medic walked up. She looked at me in the eyes, and I saw her look down at my leg, and then she turned around and throw up. And I knew right then and there. I said, okay, doc, obviously my leg is gone, so just put me out, and I don't want to remember anything. And so I woke up 2 days later, and the leg was gone, and I was stitched up.
Still in Iraq?
Still in Iraq. I woke up, and my squad members were all the way around my bed, just crying, every last one of them. And that was the first time I got emotional. But what can you do? So as soon as I stabilized, they flew me out to Landstuhl, Germany. I was there for 23 hours, had 2 surgeries while I was there. And then they put me on a plane to Walter Reed Army Medical Center. So it was nice. Got to Walter Reed, automatically was put in the intensive care unit. A lot of good care. I mean, they took care of me from day one, and I was there for over 11 months. I learned how to walk again. I had a colostomy bag because my colon wasn't working. Had a catheter because my bladder was perforated. 17 surgeries later, 11 months later, got released or medically discharged from the military. It was difficult. I very hyper vigilant. I always wanted to know my escape route. I knew where the doors were. I knew what windows opened and how they opened. I would always check my surroundings to make sure that I was in the safe place in the room, meaning that I could get out if someone burst in shooting or if some explosion went off. So I was constantly hypervigilant. My anxiety levels were through the roof. But these are just things that you got to try to work through. You got to go to counseling and take the skills that you learn into the classroom with you. And I was open and upfront with all my teachers, and continue to be, that if I get up and walk out, it's not because I'm trying to disrespect you. I'm not that kind of guy. I have issues with anxiety or whatever, and I'll come back after class and talk to you about it and things like that. And I haven't had any resistance yet, so it's fine so far.
What do you think the difference between you and another graduate student is?
Life experience, without a doubt. I think that when people talk about the stress of having to take a final exam, it's not stressful. I mean, no one can tell me that's the most stressful thing if that's the most stressful thing they've done in life, then I can smile and walk right by them. I mean, that's not stress. For a kid that just got out of undergrad and going right into master's, that's not stress. That truly isn't. I think I'm different because when the teacher wants a perspective on an issue of social work, I've seen poverty in different countries. I've seen suffering at a greater magnitude than most people. And I can bring that perspective to these people and say, let's really look at the big picture here. You're talking about a small section of life. Well, there's other countries, there's other civilizations that are much worse off than we.
What has UK done in particular to change and to make your challenges less?
Well, I mean, better than anybody about the UK MBA that's been started up, I guess a year ago now. Just what they're doing to make the veteran feel comfortable, not only offering a safe haven, if you will, for them to go and get support, but offering them assistance with their admission and their transcripts and whatever else to make their transition into the university easier. I think it's just great what they're doing. I know my undergrad school never had a veteran organization. I would have probably looked past it anyways if they did have one, because at the time I wasn't involved in the military. But I think it's making a more veteran-friendly community at University of Kentucky. And I think they need to continue to grow and continue to do more for the veterans. But only time. That's all it will take. Just a little bit of time and a lot of support.